The fourth week of the course, and this week, in the third week, having completed your interviews and analyzing those interviews, today, this week, the fourth week, you're going to be developing and implementing your surveys. So the first half of the week, you are going to be coming up with questions. And last week, you looked a little bit at the qualities of good questions, and we're going to continue in that general area. But this time you're actually going to develop the questions themselves. You'll have a discussion board where you'll place the questions, draft questions, and people can comment on them. And then ultimately they will be placed in SurveyMonkey. You'll need to put them in SurveyMonkey, and I will evaluate your questions. So you need to make sure that you've designed them well. You're going to be developing two of them. Now your group needs to have two questions in your survey that I've identified, which is the age and gender questions. But beyond that, the questions are up to you based on what you've learned from the interviews, what you want to learn about, and so what would make the most sense in your surveys. But the key part about surveys that's different from interviews is that you do not have the flexibility to be able to figure out whether or not to change the question. So you're stuck with the question once you put it in there. And there is no late period on the surveys. The surveys are going to go out on Thursday. They need to be ready to go starting on Thursday. You can't change questions once the survey is out. So you need to be on time this week, otherwise you won't get credit for your survey questions or they won't be part of the survey. Now, the other part of this week, and the second part of the week, will be focusing in on preparing for your last week, which is both preparing for quantitative analysis, which is how do you analyze what the results are of your survey. And the second thing that you look at will be preparing to either do a content analysis or an observation. This will be the third and final method that we'll use in the course. And you need to think about which makes the most sense to you. Content analysis typically relates to what we call our texts, which could be pictures, generally written things, but they're usually tangible items that you are observing and analyzing, but they're sort of fixed in time kind of things. Whereas observations themselves are live. You're going to a particular place or location, and you think about the place or location, and you're actually watching things live to see what's going on and taking notes on that. So they're slightly different in the way they're organized, but you're going to do one of those two in the final week. We're going to prepare you to begin to think about that this week. Next week, you'll both, like with the survey, you'll be planning your content analysis or observation in the first part of the week and finishing it up in the second part of the week with the analysis. So that's our fourth week, and I hope you are keeping up, because again, this week you'll be a little bit more flexibility, but you do need to get those surveys out. Think about how you're going to get surveys distributed. Representative samples are most critical. Not everybody's going to respond to your survey. While it's be nice to send them all to your friends, you might think about, is that the population you're trying to reach? So be thoughtful about it. Otherwise, you're going to have to recognize that the results of your survey are biased based on the sample that you selected, because you want the sample to represent the population being the larger group that the survey is supposed to represent. If you do that well, a survey can be a very powerful tool. See you next week.